Man, why am I getting it?
Oh, not hearing me yet. There it is. How about that?
Oh, there it is. That's good.
Okay, so I have to start that whole spiel again. Welcome. It's DocuSign Advanced. How you doing? That's
Good,
what I
how are
said.
you?
That's my lips were moving for like 5 minutes, and that's all I said was hi. How you doing? Well, we are here on KW Tech TV, which is the Zoom room. We are on YouTube Live, which is kwtechtube.com, and we are live on Facebook. And now, of course, we have finally the audio. So yay! So we're going to go over a bunch of advanced tips in DocuSign today. Specifically, we're going to be talking about organizational techniques in your room so that you can kind of keep things together, especially with the relationship with DocuSign and Command. So we're going to make it easy for you guys to find what you're looking for when you're in Command, knowing how to locate it in DocuSign because you're going to organize your room. We're also going to take a look at emailing documents to your DocuSign account. So instead of somebody having to email things to you and then you taking them and emailing them or printing them out or doing all this stuff to get them into DocuSign, we're going to have them send their documents directly to DocuSign. So I think you're going to find that one really interesting and really cool. And then we're going to talk about some integration techniques. Specifically, we're going to talk about integrating with the real estate forms, and which you by default you get, but I'm going to show you some cool things about that integration and also how to set up your zip forms if you are not already connected to zip forms. So lots going on here today. And if we are able, and I'm not going to make any promises because there's so many cool things to cover in this advanced class that I usually put a little bonus at the end where we talk about in-person signing. But I'm always cautious about that because in-person signing is actually a pretty big topic. And if I don't have enough room to cover it properly, I tend not to touch it at all. And we do a separate one for that because I don't want to leave you hanging. So we've got a lot to cover. So welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. And remember, I do see now on Facebook that you guys had trouble hearing. You're good now. I'm watching all the comments everywhere. So feel free to just pop in and say hi. And we should be good to go. So what you see on your screen for Facebook users, and for a moment, you will now see it for your Zoom people. I'm in Command, and as you know, and you've been with me for long enough, you know that I always start in Command. Even though I've got DocuSign sitting over here on the side, we're going to start in Command. Why? Because we always make sure that we get to DocuSign specifically from Command because it takes us to the right place. So inside the contacts area, I'm going to go ahead and select one of my contacts. And here's my little demo contact I always use. And we're going to create really quickly a brand new opportunity to show you some of these advanced tips. So I'm going to create an opportunity. I will select it as a listing. Remember, we always do the opportunity name as who, what, and where. And the where is 123 Main Street in Epping. You do not need the zip code, but it is nice if you put the property address in here. Now, that's, of course, for a listing. If it's a buying opportunity, you may not have it yet, but in that case, just go ahead and put it in later. All right. The commission rate is required. And I'm going to show you that the estimated close date, if we add this, I'll just go ahead and put this closing date out in March. Estimated list price, we'll say it's going to be $450. And now, there we go. Boom. We got ourselves an opportunity. Now, if you're ever wondering how long it takes to create an opportunity, that was about 30 seconds. And I was talking all the way through it. So that's how we create opportunities. Why? Because the opportunity is what connects to DocuSign. So we'll open up our opportunity. And in the case of a listing, if the listing is already in the MLS, you click this button to get that listing from the MLS. If the listing is not in the MLS, it's not a listing. You will click on the property search button to get the property that will eventually be in the MLS. But at the end of the day, you always want the MLS property because the MLS information comes over. 123 Main Street. Let's try that. Main. There we go. And we'll search for this. And when you see the MLS, oh, that's not it. When you see the MLS, you'll see your name. You'll see the listing date. So always verify this information because that's the listing you want to put into the documents. So we'll click that listing. you'll notice that it brings the listing in here, and we have the little picture and the pricing. You don't see that if you just bring in an address, because the listing information is not there. So now we know we have a listing. All right, we'll go to the Documents tab. Notice I'm blowing through this. This is the creation of an opportunity and the editing of an opportunity. So we're not focusing on that here today, but I'm giving you the tidbits so that you always have them. So on the Documents tab, we always pick a checklist type that references what kind of an opportunity it is and where it is. In this case, it's a listing in New Hampshire. So I'll choose my New Hampshire listing checklist. This shows me the documents that are required. If I click on the word requirement, it actually sorts them by required. All of the little labels here for the green button that say DS, these documents will automatically load now in DocuSign. That's what that means, is when you create the DocuSign room, all of these little things are automatically going to be added as fillable forms to your DocuSign room. And this is part of that advanced techniques here. This saves you time now. Jason Hool and I spent some time to get this working for you guys, to make it so that these documents are now loaded automatically into your DocuSign room. For you .loop users, the documents that are in this list, because this is a DocuSign linkage, that little green button, it doesn't load those documents into .loop for you, because .loop already does it and already did it. So if you're using .loop, these are automatically in there anyway. So in a sense, both of them will load. All right. So now let's talk about what's going to happen when we get a little bit further down the line. We're going to focus first on organizing our DocuSign room. And the reason we're going to focus on that is because of this page. This page, if we look down here, and we have not started the transaction in DocuSign yet, so we haven't clicked the big blue button yet to start the transaction. But down below that, it says attach files from. And in the attach files from, because we have not created the DocuSign room or the .loop, we do not see any option other than getting the files in these slots from our computer. So we can only bring documents to this Documents tab from our computer because we haven't created the room. But once we create the room, and I'm going to show you now what happens, we're going to have more options over here on the right, because the connection to DocuSign is going to give us some tools to help us organize what we're looking at. So we'll click on start a transaction. And because I have both DocuSign and .loop, I get the choice. Normally you shouldn't have this. You should just pick one and stay with it. Now, which one should you use? We recommend DocuSign, but you obviously and completely have your options to choose .loop. We're focusing on DocuSign in this class, so we'll be looking at that. So I'll choose DocuSign, and boom, I click the button, and it's already happening in the background. And because I've already signed into DocuSign, it did not ask me for a username and password. If you have if you leave DocuSign and you close the tabs, and like the next day you go to do what we just did, it'll ask you to log in. So go ahead and log in. So now that we've done that, a couple of things. First of all, you'll notice that the documents that we talked about a moment ago did load into the DocuSign room, but you don't see what's on the documents yet because it takes a couple of seconds for the images to be built here. So after a couple of seconds, if you refresh the screen, you'll see that those thumbnails show up properly. So if you see blank images where the document information should be, just wait about 30 seconds and refresh the page. So by default, these documents that were in the command little green buttons that said DS, there they are. And they are all DocuSign forms. They're not PDFs, they're forms. So the blue icons here indicate that they're fillable forms. So quickly, the difference between a fillable form in DocuSign and a PDF, or just what we call a flat document. That is, a fillable form gets its information from command. It pulls the information from the details page. It pulls the information from the details page of the DocuSign room. And I'm going to show you in the KW Answers, there is an article There's an article in here. If you just search for Sync DocuSign, there's an article called Sync Opportunity Details with the Connected DocuSign Rooms or .loop loops. This article, and I'll put this in the chats. Okay, so I'll put this right into the chat for you guys on Zoom. So I'll put that right there. And I will also put this into the chat for you guys on Facebook. So I'll come down here. That's Facebook. So I'll come in here really quick and I'll put that in this chat. There we go. So now this article discusses what information is synchronized with .loop or DocuSign. And the most important part about this is understanding that all of this stuff right here is synchronized because of the connection between command and DocuSign or the command and .loop. If you were to create a DocuSign room outside of command, you just sign into DocuSign and create the room. Or if you were to do the same thing in .loop, none of this information would be synchronized. Think about that. All of the stuff that's in here needs to be in the loop or the room, but it wouldn't be because you did not create it and synchronize it. So this is why we do this, to get all of that goodness to go over there. All right. So that information, and as you can see here, the information that's collected by DocuSign is going to be in the Details tab or any document that uses or references that information. So it's really, really important to make sure that those connections are always there. All right. Now, once we've done this, I want you to notice something. I'm going to switch the view and we're going to look at the documents instead of these big giant thumbnails. Over on the right-hand side, underneath the button that says Actions and Add over here, there's two little icons that change our view of the room. So right now we're in what's called Grid View, and I'm going to click on List View. List View just shows them in a spreadsheet format and shows you the big giant icons telling you what is here and the names of the documents. And remember, as we move forward with this particular lesson, you're going to see that things are going to change in this room based on the forms that we have, the PDFs that we have, the signed versus not signed, the certifications, and it gets messy fast. So how do you organize this to keep things good for you? Well, it's partially organized already. There is one default folder in the room, and it's called Room Docs. So you get a big giant, just basically a box, and all of the documents go in there by default. So that's why when you come in here, whether you're looking at it in Grid View or whether you're looking at it in List View, you always have this main folder called Room Docs. Now let's go back to Command for a second. Now in Command, we have created the transaction. Well, check this out. It says now, where it used to say attach files from, and we only had my computer, it now knows that we're connected to DocuSign. And because we're connected to DocuSign, we can select DocuSign as to where to get the files from. But now there's a second option, the working folder. Now, because we saw in DocuSign, we only had one folder, Room Docs, that's all we see here. And in that case, because we have to select it, notice that it wasn't selected before and all these were grayed out. Now that it's selected, it knows that it's looking for all of the documents that we want in the Room Docs area. But check this out. I click on Select to put any document. We're talking about the brokerage relationship form, which, by the way, we do know, in fact, is in the DocuSign room. But if I click on the drop down and say, put the brokerage relationship disclosure form in here, there's no options. Does anybody know why there's no option here for the brokerage relationship form?
I don't know.
It's because the form in .loop is not a flattened, signed document. It is a living, breathing template of the form, and it's not visible by command. These are invisible because they're not documents, they're forms. And forms can't be transferred back and forth because the nature of the form is it has fields that are special fields and signatures required and all that stuff. So it's not real. It's just not real. And so because of that, Command is like, yeah, I see that you're looking in the docs, the room docs folder, but there's no signed PDFs for me to look at. There's no anything. Okay. So that's why we can't see anything here yet. So let's go back to DocuSign and let's talk about this organizational structure. So right now, because we have one main giant folder, what about the tools that we have to organize it? On the right-hand side, we have an actions button, and the actions button allows us to add a folder. So we can create multiple folders inside of our DocuSign room. So maybe this is signed docs or even signed PDFs, because that's more technically what they are. All right, so I'll click create. Maybe in addition to signed PDFs, I want to separate and keep the certifications away from the PDFs. So now I have two extra folders, a certifications folder, a signed PDFs folder, and the room docs. Now, remember, there are no signed PDFs for me to look at, nor are there any certifications. But if I go back to command, even though that there's nothing in there, if I refresh command to go essentially and look back again at DocuSign, the DocuSign working folder over here now sees 3 folders. So when I'm ready, I can put the signed PDFs in the signed PDF folder and select that as the working folder. And then when I go to pull any of the documents, it's only looking in that folder for the documents. So organizationally, you are, I'm a nut for organization. You wouldn't know it by everything that's on the other side of this camera. But in terms of digital information, my digital house is very clean, because if I can't find something, I go nuts. And I get very frustrated when things are not put together and in the same spot. I'm kind of like, kind of psycho about that. If things aren't in the right spot for me to go find them, I get really kind of frustrated with myself. It's like, what are you doing? You're just completely wasting time. So for me, this works really, really well to organize, and it's very similar to the way that I work on my computer. So as many folders as you want and as many organizational tools as you need. So now when we switch back over to the view to show us the room docs here, and if you're looking at it, whether you're looking in list view, you'll still see the folders. Whether you're looking at it in thumbnail view, you'll still see the folders. You can collapse the folders, and you can do it this way. Now, something very important to note. The folders, even though I've labeled it signed PDFs, the system doesn't care what's in there, even though I use the word PDF, which means, yes, a form could be put into a folder that I've labeled PDF. There's no rules about what goes in there. But my rule would be, no, there's a form. That's a blue form. Those don't go in the PDF folder. They stay in the main window. So I can drag things back from one folder to another just by clicking on them and dragging them and putting them in the folders. Okay. You can also, I don't know if you guys know this, but you can rearrange the, well, actually, can you do that? Can you rearrange them? No, you can't. I thought you could rearrange them. They're sorted by date. So they're sorted right now by document name A to Z, or you can sort them oldest to newest and so forth. Where right now we'll come back to that when we have some signed stuff to look at. So let's go ahead and sign a document really quick so that we can see what it looks like and what happens to a document. I'm going to take a super duper easy one. We're going to take the brokerage relationship form, and we're going to right click it. Here's some advanced quick tips for you. You do not need to select the document here and then use the create envelope if you're just doing one document. So if you're doing one document, you can right click the document and just create an envelope. If you're going to create an envelope that has more than one document in it, click the check boxes for each of the documents that you want to add to the envelope, and the checkbox is in the upper left-hand corner. And you can select as many documents as you want, and you can click on the create envelope. Okay. So I'm going to kind of set the stage for something that's going to happen in a few moments so that you understand. Forms themselves use pre-filled data. This is what I was talking about when we talk about synchronizing the information with command. The seller one, we know who that is because it was in command, and we know that that role of seller one is filled by, in our case, Jackie Astuto. If there was a seller two, that role would be filled by the person we designate as seller two. The agent name is the role that we fill. So when we're in DocuSign and we're going to put documents into an envelope, we're going to eventually use the role on the document of seller one or seller two or agent, and we're going to fill that role with who's in the room. So we're going to do one simple example of that. I'm going to right-click this brokerage relationship form and choose Create Envelope. And when I do that, instead of going through all the details of the envelope, I'm going to focus on one thing for this advanced class. We know we need to name it. I'll leave that off. We know that at the bottom, we want to make a good message to the recipients and send an email message. The top name is for us. This is the envelope name for us as a reference. And the bottom information is for the recipients. So make sure that you fill this out. It's important that you organizationally have a name and a message and a body of a message for your people. Now, the document being a true DocuSign form will look at the pre-tagged roles that are on the document and then fill those pre-tagged roles based on who's in the room. If this was a PDF, this option doesn't exist because PDFs are basically dumb. They're flat documents that don't have fields pre-generated. They don't know who's supposed to sign where. So in the case of a PDF, you will not see pre-tagged roles. This is why forms are so cool, because pre-tagged roles lets you define who is the listing agent, Robert Vincent, who is seller one, Jackie Astuto. By telling the system with the pre-tagged roles who is what on the document, then in the next step, DocuSign will go find that person, put together where they're supposed to sign, all the places for them, associate their email, and you're done. So we'll click Add Selected, and it brings in the listing agent and seller one. Now remember, in an envelope, where the names are sort of matters. The reason I say sort of is because if you're using the numbers on the left-hand side, if the numbers are all 1, then everybody's going to get it at the same time. If the numbers are 1 and 2, then the first person to get it must complete the signature process before person number 2 sees it. So if you're going to sign a document, put yourself first and then put the seller second and make the number 2. That way you'll have a moment to sign the document. Generally speaking, they're not going to sign it as fast as you will, but you get the idea. If you have yourself and a signer where you guys can both sign it simultaneously, just leave the numbers 1. And in that case, it doesn't matter who's first because this is the signing order, not the document information. This is just when somebody gets it. Okay. So now we'll click on Next. And as I mentioned, the person who is signing this, in this case, 2 people, myself as the listing agent and our contact is Jackie Astuto. They're now both on the document. I'm the orange or the yellow and Jackie is the blue. When I slide down the document, I can see where Jackie needs to sign and where I need to sign. If I needed to modify something, I can just change it and say, you know what, Jackie, I want to add the initials here and have Jackie initial this. Not that she would, but you could add additional information here. Now, since we're not focused on specifically this is in the class all about envelopes. We talk about this particular tool. We are just going to send this out now. So we're going to send it out for signature. And I do have a real fake Gmail account for this contact so that I can sign it. So I hit send. Off it goes. So now I'm going to open up that contact's email. So here is my little fake real email for this person. And so here is what Jackie received. It says DocuSign, Robert sent you a document. Please review the document. So Jackie will click this button It'll take her to a DocuSign interface where she will authorize it, continue, start the signature process, sign her slot, choose her signature if she wants, and notice that the date is automatically filled in. Now, I haven't signed it as the agent yet. So because of that, she doesn't see my signature. She only sees hers. So I'll go ahead and click finish. Right.
Where's finish?
And we'll go. What, did somebody ask a question?
Where's finish?
Finish is in the top right of the document. It's kind of behind the screen here right now, but it's the yellow button on the top right. Okay. Now, your client does not need to complete this screen here because this is a DocuSign pitch. This is asking your client to create a DocuSign account. They don't need to do it. They can click on no thanks and they're fine. Okay. All right. So DocuSign says it's finished. As a matter of fact, now if I click that, I will get in Jackie's email. There's nothing here yet, but when I sign it as the agent, Jackie's going to receive an email saying this document has been signed. So let's switch back over now to to DocuSign. And now we know that Jackie has signed hers. So I'm going to go into the section here that says envelope, under the envelope section. I'm going to go into needs my signature and check it out. It already knows that seller 1 Jackie has signed, and it has the signed with the information here. And it says, Robert, you're the listing agent and you need to sign it. Right from DocuSign. I don't need to go out of DocuSign as the agent. Right in DocuSign, under the envelope sections, under needs to sign, I can click sign. And then as the agent, I love this. It's just all one-stop shopping. So I'll hit continue because this is my signature part of the document. I'll start my signature process. And here it is, required Robert Vincent. And it puts my signature in. This initial, as you guys know with the brokerage relationship form, the initial line is only used if the original signer chooses not to sign. This is an indication that they have opted out of this signing process. So you do not need to sign this if they've already signed it. I'm sorry. You do not need to initial this box if they've already signed it. Okay. So I'll go ahead and click finish. And by the way, that is one of the more common things that compliance sees is there's a client signature, an agent signature, and an agent initial. And they're like, yeah, no, you got the signature. You don't need the initial. Okay. So our completed envelope now, here, our DocuSign envelope is done. It's ready to go. The most important part, so your signature Wednesday came out small. Can you change this?
Yeah, really teeny, and compliance mentioned to me to change that. So I don't know what happened, but.
Okay. Yes. And we'll go over that in just a second. Let me come back to this and then we'll come back and answer your question.
Thank you.
So now that the envelope is done, let's go back to our documents area of the room and watch what happened to our list of documents. Where we had a few before, I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so you guys can see it as a big kind of like an image here. But we now have our blue forms, and we also have a red PDF, which says it's a certification, and we have a green signed document. The signed document is also a PDF, but in DocuSign, it shows up as green to indicate that that's the signed version. The certification, we'll start there. When you look at the certification document, it's quite literally the digital ID. It's the footprint of what happened. You do not need to move this footprint into Command. This little signature certification is just the legal document from DocuSign saying, we processed this document. Here is the official timestamps of when and where people signed it. And it actually includes IP addresses. So this is the part of the whole, is this a legal document? Yeah, you signed it sitting at this computer. So it knows where you are, geolocation, everything. So Now that we know that certifications exist, do you need them? Not today, but you may need them in the future for proof of signature. So certifications, which is why I put a folder here called certifications. Certifications can just be dropped into the certification folder to keep them out of your way so that you don't confuse those with any of the green signed documents. So I'll take my green signed document and I'll drop it into my signed folder. So what I end up with is something that looks like this. I end up with a certification in the certifications folder, a signed document here, and then now I'm left with all the blue form documents in the main folder. That organizational structure alone, just three folders, you guys. 3 folders will do you worlds of good. Now, here's where it comes back to make it easy for you. Now that we took the time to set that up, if we go back to Command, and again, I'll refresh my page here in Command because Command needs to look back at DocuSign and see what's changed. Now that I've done that, in my working folders, my room docs are not going to show up when I look at them here because they're forms. My signed PDFs, when I look at that now, will show me the signed PDFs. My certification PDFs, I will know not to use those because they say certification. So we don't need that. All right. So this keeps it so that I don't bring the wrong document. And honestly, I keep saying that this is for compliance, but honestly, it's for you. I mean, how many times have you got confused on what document is where? Keep things easy. So signed PDFs, brokerage relationship form, signed, perfect. Now I know that I've got the right document from the right location in the right slot. Okay.
Good.
Organizationally, that is one of my favorite tools. Using the actions button to create your folders. All right. Questions on that?
No.
All right. So Wednesday, let's take a look at this. All right. So I'm going to take a different document and we'll take the wire fraud doesn't require a signature. We'll take, see, disclosure. Does this one require an agent signature? I think it does.
And I got to be honest, I didn't do it as nice and eloquently and proper the way you just did it. I did it. It must have been, I don't even know. All I know is I had to drag it down for where the signatures go.
Okay.
Because I knew I had done it before where it automatically put the signatures. But then last night I was trying to figure and I ended up, yeah. So it came out really small and it was just not a nice cursive signature. It was just my name.
All right. So let's explore what happened and let's see if we can, actually somebody on Facebook asked a question. I missed it. That's Laura. Laura asked, in your example on the broker relationship form, what is the most efficient way to then add your license number and office number? Laura, that's a great question. I'm going to combine.
Oh, I had that one too.
I'm going to combine your answers. Okay. So we're going to do both answers in this same section. So Laura, stay with me here. Okay. So what you just said, Wednesday, was you dragged a document in because you didn't use a form. A form is going to have a standardized size object for the signature area, but a form or a PDF that you bring in, like you said, you have to drag it out. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drag in a document from my desktop to this, and it's going to be right here. And there we go. So I just dragged in just a random document from my desktop. This is what it looks like. It's actually a command quick start guide. Let's say I want somebody to sign right here. Okay. Now, in the case of this document, this is not a form. This is just a flat, dumb PDF. Yes, I can put signatures on this and fields and all that. It's tedious, but in some cases it's required because the document you need them to sign is not in the form library. Maybe it's something else. So we'll use this as an example, even though it doesn't fit perfectly with what I want to show you. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do 2 things. We're going to take this document, this one I just brought in, which is just a dumb PDF, and we're going to go ahead and take in the disclosure information. All right. So we're going to take one that's a form and one that's a PDF, and we're going to create an envelope for both documents. And I'm going to show you how to work 2 types of documents in one envelope. So because I put a checkbox in both of these, I'm now going to click up here on the newly visible toolbar that says create envelope. So I create the envelope. Nothing's changed in terms of what the envelope looks like. It's going to have the same information. The envelope name, and we're going to put in here something along the lines of 2 documents for my contact to sign. Okay. And then that's the name of my envelope. The email subject is, please sign these 2 documents. Thank you very much. Okay. And then the email message would be something a little more personal. But here we have a PDF, and I'm not going to move my mouse over top because it kind of does that gray thing. But you can see here, this is the PDF document, and it shows the PDF icon. This one here is the room document, and it has the form icon. The form icon can use pre-tagged roles. The PDF can't because it doesn't know where to put the signatures because there aren't any. So let's take a look at the pre-tagged role portion. So in the add recipient, we do see pre-tagged roles, but remember, this one is not going to look at those. So we'll add pre-tagged roles, and we're going to say that we'll do seller 1, and that is going to be Jackie Studo, and the listing agent, who is going to be me. Okay. Now, in both cases, this is the information that we need, and we're going to go ahead and hit add selected. But nothing on this document was referenced in those pre-tagged roles because DocuSign doesn't see information on this. So now that we have this, we have listing agent and we have Robert Vincent, we're ready to go to the signature process. All right. So if I click next, this is where you got when you had the problem. The PDF, when we look at this PDF, I'll go and you'll notice that, by the way, on the right-hand side, we now have 2 documents. Okay. The one on the top has the little sticky notes saying that there's the 2 colors for people to sign. That's the one that knows there's pre-tagged roles. The one on the bottom can't have a pre-tagged role, so it's going, I don't know what you want here, but it's here for you if you need it. So starting on the first one, when we go down to the bottom, there's an initial box for the, in this case, remember what we're looking for? We know that the initial box is designated as the agent. Agent has informed the seller of the seller's obligation. So this is for me. Now, that box is just fine in size for an initial. But if compliance tells you that they're too small, you can click on that box and make it as big as it needs to be. There is a limit. Notice that when I pulled it out, it kind of stopped. It went to its maximum size. So in this case here, that size was a little small, but it can be maximized. That's for a pre-tagged role. The same thing for this signature for the seller. The seller box can be made smaller or larger than the default size. This is the default size down here. So you can see that you can make it bigger or you can make it smaller. So if you're seeing that the pre-tagged role options for the sizes of the boxes is too small, go ahead and make them a little bit bigger. All right. Now, on the PDF, which is on the next page, there's nothing anywhere, which means, like Wednesday, what you were saying was you need to bring things out for somebody to sign. So let's say we want Jackie to sign it. If we bring the signature box out and we make it fit into an area, you're like, you know what, it needs to fit right here. You're going to end up making it tiny. So you want to make sure that you remember that even though the box might be big, the signature is going to be large, but it's not going to take up the entire box. As we saw when we looked at what happened, just make it a little bit bigger. And you can go back to the documents that you worked with before and decide how much bigger you need it to be. And now I'm going to get a little ahead of myself here. If the document, the PDF, came from a scanned source, like a flatbed scanner that was really high resolution, I have seen it where the document size is massive. And no matter how big you make the box, it always appears to be tiny because the document is so large in relationship and you can't make it any bigger. It has like a limit here because it's the maximum size. If you are encountering where no matter what you do to make that box big, it won't go to a point where it works for you, it's the document that was scanned at a too high of a resolution that's causing the problem. It's not this. All right. And in that case, the best solution is to go download this program. And Scanner Pro is for your phone. And what it does is it scans documents, and you can email yourself or your DocuSign room, which is what we're going to talk about in a minute. You can email your documents directly from your scanner on your phone, and they'll go right into the DocuSign room or the DocuSign inbox. And this way, you're getting a PDF that is built for document sizes. It's not built for ultra high resolution photos. It's not a flatbed scanner that can be inadvertently set too high. This little program here is absolutely fantastic. I've been using this for years to scan my documents. Cool thing about Scanner Pro here, there's a how-to section on how to create scans. So there's an entire, we're just going to Redl.com, Scanner Pro, or even just searching for it. When you go in here and download that, you can go to the how-to and how to create a new scan, and it walks you through exactly how to do it. It's a really, really cool thing. I might even put this, you know what? I talk about this so much. I think I'm going to put this and the links to it in the LMS so people can use it. I'm going to do that because I always talk about this thing. So if your scans that you've got of documents are so large that you cannot make the signature fields big enough, it's the document size that's the problem. You need a better scanner. And by the way, that program is free. Okay, so now that we've talked about that, Laura, you asked about, how do you put your other information on there? So this is actually a perfect question for the topic that we're on right now, because one of the things that is a problem here is, if I go back to the first document here, I want you to just kind of play along with me here for a second. And I want you to imagine that in this agent section, there was a section here that says license number, but there was no box for it. Okay. So in Laura's case, you need to put something on the document that is part of your information. You need to fill it out, but there is no slot for it. So how do you do it? Well, if I switch back over to Robert Vincent, who is the agent in this case, there's no box over here really for me to put information in advance. Now I can bring a text box out here, and I can put a text box from the left, and I can actually add that text, and maybe that's the license number, right? But this is not technically correct, because what this is this is like placeholder text for the signing process, which means that when I go to sign this, I could actually overwrite that number or change that number. What we want is a pre-fillable field that we can put on this document at this stage of the game that will lock in the value before the signing process takes place. So that technical mumbo jumbo means that we want to add a special field where we're going to put some data in here and lock it down so that at the signing process, it's not needed. How do we do that? Well, we know that the people that are in the room are listed by their color, and they're listed by their color according to these standard fields, which is on the left here. And you can see standard fields is what we're looking at, but there's a little menu. There's one below standard fields called custom fields. And the custom fields are literally custom made fields that are done by KW and all of us here. This is a mess. Don't use this.
Oh.
The one below that is notary fields, and it's quite literally for notarizing documents. You'll notice that at KW, we have that grayed out. You're not going to use it. Can't use it. And then finally, here is your personal fields that you can use to add information to a document that is going to be part of the document before the signature process. Remember, on a form, you can fill it out in the room, right? Back in the DocuSign documents area. But in the case of the PDF, or even a form that's missing some information, you want to fill it out here before it goes for signing. And that's what these pre-fill tools are for. And I'm going to start with the most important one because not a lot of people know this, but where on earth do you go to get a line item remover? So you use the line. When you click line, you get the line out. So this automatically generates a red line that you can use to line out any part of a contract. So this is the strikeout line. That's where you find it, under the pre-filled tools. So Laura, when you want to put in your license number, you can take out a text field. And this text field looks almost exactly the same as the one that was under your name. The difference is, once you put a value in here, this is going to lock it to the document. And at the signature process, you won't be able to inadvertently change it. Okay? So using pre-fill tools. Now, this has nothing to do with who you have selected. Notice that whether you have Jackie or Robert, that neither of one of those impact your options for pre-filled tools. The selection up here impacts which fields you use when you're using the standard fields, but not for the pre-fills. Okay?
I'm a little confused as to when we do this, like the text box and put the agent number in there.
So for example, let's say there was a document. Now, I'll qualify this by saying DocuSign is not perfect. Okay? Because DocuSign is not perfect, there may be something that needs to be added to a form manually that somebody screwed up and didn't put in there as a fillable field. Okay? And in those cases, pre-fill tools allow you to make those objects sit where they need to sit. Now that's for a form. But on a PDF, by a PDF's very nature, there are no spots. So these are great when you have to put, again, we'll call these non-signature dedicated fields. This has nothing to do with somebody on the document. This is just information that needs to be added to the document. So PDFs are an excellent way to use these. PDFs can combine pre-fill tools with signature fields, and you can have both. So you can combine anything.
So once you create the envelope, then you're putting this in when you have to click next?
Yes,
Okay.
because you can't, that's the main reason, is you can't put that information on the forms or the PDFs in the document area, because those areas are not editable, especially in the case what Laura's saying is that there was no slot for her to put her license information, but it's required.
Right.
So somebody screwed up.
I ran into the same thing last night. So I had to print it out, sign it, put my license number, and then scan it, and then do all that. Yeah.
And this is exactly what that's avoiding, is you can do it right here, put your license number and put that in here and blah, blah, blah. And now that license number is part of the document before the signature process, and it still has the signature option. Perfect. Those are good questions. All right. So now that we know that, let's take this a little bit further here and understand that we do see the combination of a form, which has the fillable fields, and we see a PDF, which was dumb, and we have to add everything manually. We want to avoid at all costs taking PDFs like you just described, Wednesday, where you say you had to print it out, sign it, scan it, and then do the signature process. We want to avoid that. This is exactly that, to avoid that. So we can add what we need. And then anytime that we need to sign a document, if we are added to the document as a position 1, then we will see it first. If we are added to the document as a position 2 or 3, let's say the signer, we're going to send it to the signer first and then come back to us. If you muck around with the order of signatures, you will have to wait until those signatures come to you. Again, assuming that you're number 2. But if you put yourself at number 1 in the listing, in the envelope, I'll go back to the envelope and I'll let you see exactly what I'm talking about. Down here, it doesn't matter what physical order they're in. It does not matter this, okay? What matters is the numbers. So if we put ourselves at number 1 and we say that Jackie Astuto is going to be number 2, then what's going to end up happening is Jackie won't be able to sign this until we do. And maybe that's what you want. Maybe you want to say, okay, I need to make sure that I sign this first. And after I sign, DocuSign will send it to her. Boom. Or you could say, I'm going to go ahead and put both of us in here at number 1. And I'm going to, as soon as I finish the send button, I'm going to go right into the envelope and assign it. And I guarantee you're going to beat that person to the punch because nobody sits by their email and waits for a document to come through. So you've got a few minutes. So if you're doing this and you want to sign it before anybody else, either put yourself at the same level or put them at a level that's 2, 3, 4, or 5 or whatever. And that way you can guarantee that when you go to finish the form and send it out, and I'll go ahead and hit send. So I'll hit send. Now remember, we're both at number 1 on the document, which means there are signatures required here. So needs my signature. This is the brand new envelope we just created. 2 documents, needs my signature. Seller 1, we're still waiting on, needs to sign. But me, I can sign it. So I'll hit sign. It opens it up. I'll continue and we'll start it. So here's my, by the way, there's my strike throughs. Okay. And look at this. Remember what I was telling you about there's that field. It's non-editable because we put it in there and sealed it up. So this is a perfect example. Now the difference would be if we had just added a text field, then that text field would actually be open for us to edit. And that's not what we're looking for. We wanted to lock that down. So now we're signing against that license number and it's in there. Now here is page 2. There it is. There it is again. There's that pre-fill field. We've added data to the document. It doesn't require a signature. And in this case, if you're wondering what happened to those other signature boxes, those other signature boxes are for Jackie. My signature boxes only appeared on this one. So essentially, I'm done with this document. So I'll go ahead and click finish. And now that we've done that, let's jump over to Jackie. And it says, please sign these 2 documents for Jackie. So we'll click in there just as she would do. We'll approve that we're going to sign them. We'll continue and we'll start. And it says, all right, Jackie, you need to sign here. Robert's already signed it. His stuff's already done. Sign. Great. We'll adopt it and sign it. And here are the 2 fields that we added, just random fields onto this document. And she's going to sign next to those. And we can click finish. So I'm not going to lie to you guys. DocuSign is not the easiest thing in the world, but it's really not that hard once you understand the way it thinks. And that's a lot to ask. And I know that, but understanding this program can take you a long way because then you can start to do things in the program that you wouldn't be able to do. So it's not that bad. So we'll refresh this. Those 2 things are done. And we'll go back to the documents area. And now we see a signed version of that PDF. Remember, you can actually see it in the thumbnails here. You can actually, before I even click on it to make it larger, you can see there's the signature fields that are on the signed one. This is the PDF without the signature fields. Okay, so you can actually see, then there's the certified number here. And also, if you really look closely, you can see the license number in there. So you can see that license number. All right, back in Command, again, refreshing the page because I'm kind of just sitting on it. Where are those new documents that I just signed? Are they in the signed PDF folder? Or are they certifications or room docs?
Certifications.
Signed.
Certifications.
Okay, so you guys think they might be in one of these 2. Let's start off with signed, okay? We'll come down and just randomly pick something here. Brokerage relationship form. No, that's the one that's up there. And it looks like the signed folder only has 1 document. So that didn't work. Okay, so how about certifications? So we'll go to the certification. No, it says there's the certification, but that's not what I want either. So what you guys didn't notice was that back in DocuSign, I never moved the newly signed documents from
You tricked
the
us.
room docs into the signed area. And we have 2 of them. We have the disclosure and we had that little PDF that we made. Now they're in signed docs. And to that end, in the certifications area, I need to get that certification for that newly signed set of documents up here, keeping myself organized. Now, back in Command, Now what you guys said holds true. The signed docs folder has what I need. There's the quick start guide. There's the brokerage, which I already pulled in. And then there's disclosure of lead-based paint and information. Okay, so now we can bring them in. So we'll do the quick start guide, which, by the way, now has, once again, our little pre-populated box and our signatures. Okay, so I kind of knew that we weren't going to get to the in-person signing because we're pretty much at the end of it here. Let me jump real quick and show you one last thing. And I'm going to do this as a caveat because the reason I saved this for last is because this is not a required action. But in your profile, I want you guys to take a look. So click on your profile in Command or in DocuSign and click on Preferences. Okay, so click on Preferences. And when you go to Preferences, do me a favor and go down to Integrations. And in your integrations area, I want you to make sure that ZipForm is connected if you're using ZipForm. And if you don't know what ZipForm is and you don't know what I'm talking about, don't do it because that means that you don't need it. So make sure that's connected. Additionally, make sure that it says company forms here and that it is connected there. And if that's the case, you're good to go. If either of these are not connected and you are having trouble accessing your zip forms or accessing your NAR files, your NAR docs, reach out to me. All right. So we covered quite a bit. And one of the last things that I did not cover that I'm not going to do now because we just don't have time is using the email to inbox. So because this is actually a short piece, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a video for this and I'll put this in the LMS for you guys so that you can watch it and refer to it again later. And you'll have it as a reference. So emailing to the inbox can be a very cool tool when you've got other people sending you PDFs and signed documents that are not DocuSign documents, and you just need to get them in this room. So this will be really kind of a neat tool. All right. Any questions for me?
No, gotta try it. Okay,
good. Get in there, have some fun. I'm sure that you're going to, when you do some things like this, you're going to have some more questions. Reach out to me and let me know. You can always reach out to me at command@kwclm.com. So I'll share that with you here. There you go. So if you are trying to email, just command@kwclm. Our YouTube channel is kwtechtube.com. You can book time with me at timewithrobert.com. KW Tech TV is our, what am I saying? It's our YouTube channel. And then our Facebook training feed is facebook.com MCTT463. And our LMS that I keep talking about is kwclmtraining.com. If you do not have an account, create a free account there using your KW email, and you'll have access to this and all other trainings that we offer. All right, that's going to do it for today. The DocuSign class. Remember, at 1 o'clock today, we are doing the Command 101 class. And that one, I forgot what I'm talking about. I didn't bring it up here. So Command 101 today, we're going over offers and commissions. And then the Command 301 at 3 o'clock is creating your agent website. So we have a packed day of training. Hopefully we'll see you there. But as for now, that's going to do it for me. We'll talk to you guys in a little bit. Y'all take care.
Thank you.